See, these people had been invited, and they went there only to be hospitable because, it wouldn't have been Christian to refuse an invitation to a dinner someone had given them. But they were determined not to have any fun. It will be as if our taste buds don't exist. That's what one person said, and the food is not important. How often do we approach life with wearing the black and saying, well, life is just going to be a continuation of what it was yesterday and what it will be tomorrow, because we have narrowed our focus, we have constrained ourselves. And the banquet that's before us, we cut and slice and dice into nice, manageable pieces. By contrast, do you remember in Jesus' story the ones who accepted the invitation gratefully, joyously? The lame, the poor, the outcast, those who were vulnerable, those who were dependent, those who were needy. Can you imagine any of the kids that you see on the screen now as saying when they were invited to a banquet, no, I'd rather not? Of course not. Because of such is the banquet. Of such is the type of person who can joyfully receive that without question. If you went to anybody who calls the sidewalk their home, and you were to say to that individual, listen, the richest man in St. Louis has invited you and the others on the street to his house for a banquet. It is going to be fantastic. Look at the banquet. It's going to have a roasted top round of carved beef, and it's going to have scalloped potatoes, and it's going to have steamed vegetables that are fresh. It's going to have homemade rolls. It's going to have the finest wine, the richest coffee, and pumpkin pie. We'll have all of that. And do you really expect anyone who calls home the sidewalk their street, the street their home, do you expect any of them with such an invitation to go, well, I'll have to think about that? Of course not. They said, lead the way. And they go and they would have the time of their lives. They wouldn't think twice about it. What they would think twice about with joy is the hospitality of the host. And what they would think twice about with joy are their table companions, the relationships they're forming. Those are the ones who can accept the bounty of the table, the fullness of life. This morning, what we need to do is to be able to find a guide who can enable us to sit down at the table, a table of life and feast. Technically, we are beginning the season of Advent. Specifically, what that means is that we lighten up, we loosen up. We let go a little bit of trying to be in control, and we start looking at life in a different way. And we need a guide for that. Someone who can enable us, maybe someone with a different lifestyle, a different perspective, someone who can enable us to see just what we're missing. Someone who can give us the fullness. In the clip that you saw with the people in black, Babette was the one who invited them to that feast. Babette was a renowned French chef who had been exiled to this Danish village because of political unrest in France. She had been befriended by a couple of sisters, stayed there for years, and as a way of saying thank you, Babette put on that feast. Cost her all of her savings, but she wanted to say thank you. And when those people reluctantly sat down and started eating, as minutes passed, the magic of the banquet happened. Their lives opened up. They began talking with each other. Some grudges started melting away. They began getting better acquainted and enjoying each other, and they even smiled. And at the very end, as they go out into the night, they are redeemed, renewed people. And one person looking up into the stars was compelled to say, Alleluia, because he had been to the banquet and he'd been fed. So my friends, before this day is up, before this week is up, I would invite you to come up with an Advent guide. Someone maybe whose lifestyle is different from yours, someone whose perspective maybe is different from yours, and let that person guide you to the banquet, to a new way of looking at it, enjoying life. It might be this person, your Advent guide would be someone to say, will you lighten up about your worries over your health? You've been invited to a banquet. Forget about them for these next few weeks. And this person might be going through the same health problems that you're going through, or has the same worries that you have. And yet this person is handling those problems with grace and with strength and with hope that you marvel at. Let that person be your guide. Or maybe your guide is a person in your office who has to deal with the same politics in the office as you have to deal with, the same boredom and monotony maybe, and yet seems to have a different perspective and maybe almost enjoys work that you can't handle much or too well anymore. You talk to that person. You let that person guide you to a new way of looking at what God is offering you even in the office. Maybe the Advent guide that you need to find is someone who can say, will you lighten up about your cares, about your money? You've been invited to the banquet. Enjoy. This is a person who doesn't have as big a bank account as you and does not have as much stuff as you, but you think this person is happier than you. So you get acquainted with that person. You listen and talk to that person. See the banquet that that person can invite you to. Find an Advent guide to lead you to the fullness that you will discover, that we celebrate in a different metaphor, a different image on December 25th. But you get ready for the banquet, and you taste it without restriction. Now, when I came to this point of writing this sermon to share with my brothers and sisters here at Manchester, I said, okay, here you are preaching. Why don't you practice that? And that was sort of a novel thing for me. You know, practice what you preach. So I said, okay, who is going to be my Advent guide? And I came up with someone. Actually, I came up with two someones. These are two sisters from my former church. There's Avery, who is about 5 years old now, I guess, and there's her sister Emerson, who's about 3. One Sunday after church, as I was greeting people, little Avery comes up to me with a drawing made from her crayon, looked something like this, and said, "Here, Pastor Greg." And I said, "Thank you so much." And I'm going to put this on my office door, and so I did. And you know what? The next Sunday, Avery comes up with another drawing. "Here, Pastor Greg." And I said, "Thank you. I'm going to put this on my office door." And so I did. The next Sunday, you get the idea? My office door was covered with the artwork of Avery and then Emerson, along with some other kids, but these were the main artists. And each time there's this beautiful, simplistic joy in giving me what they thought was similar to the Mona Lisa. And any time that one of them didn't give me one, they would usually say, "Pastor Greg, I'm sorry, I don't have one for you today, but I will next Sunday." And so she would. Simple joy in the colors of crayons, the smell of crayons, the simple joy of putting a smile on someone's face by simply giving a gift away. Well, I tell you, friends, I need Emerson and Avery to be my Advent guides. Because I know how I am. Maybe you're sort of like that too, that as the days and the weeks of Advent go and Christmas gets closer, there are all these things we have to do and all the time gets constricted and you start going and your blood pressure rises. And when that happens to me, I'm going to stop and I'm going to remember those two little girls. And I'm going to look around and see the simple treasures that are there like a banquet that I had not noticed before. And I'm going to remember how wonderful it is to be able to brighten someone's life with a simple gift. A call, a visit, a card. And I'm going to see how truly sweet life is, especially this time of year, thanks to those two little girls. So I invite you to find an Advent guide. Whoever your guide is, it will be someone who will say, "We have plenty here. Would you like some?" And you be sure to censor all those reasons why you think you shouldn't. And you respond to that person, "Why, yes, I would." And you dig into that pie. Make sure it's filled with whipped cream. You say, "This is the best pie I have ever had. I never knew what I was missing. Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you so much. I'll have some more."